It happened in the quiet glow of a family dinner. The table was set. Candles flickered. The air carried the smell of roasted vegetables and warm bread. But before the first plate could be passed, a sentence would fall into the room like a blade. A sentence that would cut through every smile, through every shred of peace, and leave the people I love in pieces. That night, my brother Fred sat at my table with his wife, Sarah. They looked tired. The kind of tired you can't cure with a good night's sleep. It had been only 1 month since they lost their baby, a stillbirth. A word that sounds clinical, but hides a grief so heavy it can crush the air from your lungs. Sarah had stepped away to the bathroom. My husband, trying to be kind, turned to Fred and asked, "How's she holding up?" Fred barely opened his mouth before my sister Katie jumped in, and what she said, I will never forget it. "Well," she began, in that tone she uses when she thinks she's the smartest person in the room. "Though the loss is very sad, think of this as a good thing. At least you don't have to worry about money anymore. Like I said before, you shouldn't bring kids into this world unless you're sure you can provide for them." The words hung there, poisonous. Fred's face went red, his jaw tight. He said they would have been able to provide for their child. Maybe not luxuries, but every necessity, every ounce of love. His voice cracked, his eyes brimmed, and in that moment, I saw him, my big brother, on the edge of breaking. I didn't wait for Katie to say another word. I took her by the arm and pulled her into the kitchen. I demanded to know what possessed her to say something so cruel. Her defense? She said she was making a practical observation, that she was 100% correct, that it was better to see things clearly than be clouded by emotion. By then, Sarah had returned. She saw Fred's tear-streaked face, the way his hands shook. Her panic rose instantly. She was asking what happened, why he was crying, her voice climbing higher with every breath. I knew what would happen if Katie stayed, so I told her to leave. She looked hurt, angry, but she walked out. When our parents arrived later, I told them what had happened. They were shocked, upset with Katie. But my mother, she hesitated. She thought maybe I shouldn't have kicked Katie out. But to understand why I did, you have to know the full story. Months earlier, Katie had planned a family trip. Fred and Sarah had said they couldn't come. They were saving for the baby. When they declined, my parents decided to cancel the trip altogether, especially since my mom's health wasn't great at the time. Katie was furious. She made little digs, not so subtle remarks, saying Fred and Sarah shouldn't have children if they didn't have enough money. It had already hurt them once, and then the unimaginable happened. The pregnancy ended in tragedy. 1 month later, they were still deep in the fog of grief, but Katie didn't let go of her opinion. She carried it like a loaded weapon, and at my dinner table, she fired it. The truth is, it wasn't just the words. It was the timing. They hadn't healed. They may never fully heal. There is no bright side to losing a child you wanted, you planned for, you loved before you ever met them. And Katie chose that moment, in my home, to remind them of her judgment. Fred's face will haunt me, the way his anger trembled under the weight of his pain. Sarah's confusion as she came back into the room, her world already shattered, now watching her husband's heart splinter again. I couldn't let Katie's presence stretch that wound any wider, so I removed her from the room, from the night. Later, I replayed it all in my head. Katie insisting she was practical, as if empathy was some kind of weakness, as if humanity was an obstacle to truth. And maybe that's the heart of this. She doesn't see that some truths aren't meant to be spoken aloud, not because they're false, not because they're shameful, but because they serve no purpose but to cause harm. It's been hard to shake the echo of her words. They've made me wonder if Katie ever truly understood what Fred and Sarah lost. It wasn't just a pregnancy. It was their child, their future, their hope. And no financial ledger in the world can measure the value of that. So here I am, caught between my sister's wounded pride and my brother's broken heart. My parents trying to keep the peace. Me wondering if protecting my brother and his wife meant betraying my sister. So, am I the asshole? Here's what I'll say, speaking now as your host. This story isn't just about one dinner. It's about the weight of words, the way some people wield practicality like a sword, without realizing they're cutting through something fragile, something irreplaceable. We live in a culture that praises bluntness, that says, just tell it like it is. But here's the truth. Honesty without compassion is cruelty. It doesn't make you strong. It makes you dangerous. Fred and Sarah didn't need a lesson in budgeting. They needed presence. They needed love. They needed to know that in their darkest month, their family would be a shelter, not a storm. And Katie? Maybe she'll realize one day that being right isn't the same as being kind. That you can win an argument and still lose a relationship. So I'll leave you with this. When you stand in the room with someone's grief, ask yourself, will my words help them carry it, or will I make it heavier? Because once you make it heavier, you can't take that weight back. What about you? Would you have done the same? Or would you have let Katie stay at the table? Tell me what you think.